Hi everyone. Today we are so fortunate to be interviewing Ylinel from Sacred Sound and Wellness, which is also known as Melodic Moonrise. And we're going to keep calling it Melodic Moonrise throughout the session, but she is an alternative and holistic health provider, and she provides alchemy through sound, art, energy, plants, and rites of passage. And there's so much more here that we can't wait to sort of dive into all the questions with you, but I think what I'm going to do is hand over to you for a little bit of an introduction first.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me today. Yeah, very excited to be sharing some of my work and really just being part of a community of women that are trying to really bring up each other. So this is really, really good, and I'm really honored to be here.
So can you give us a little bit of an intro on who you are and sort of what you do?
Yes, so I came here to South Africa a year ago, but I am originally from Venezuela. Yeah, so what brought me here was my partner. That's the connection. How I ended up in South Africa. But I gave birth to my daughter here in South Africa. And I've been traveling around. I live in Mexico for 8 years. And this is where I gained most of my knowledge in alternative therapies. And now, yes, I'm based in Cape Town and offering a different range of offerings, including sound healing, womb healing ceremonies. A lot of my work is rooted in ritual and ceremonies as well. And I also share cacao and incorporate the movement and the voice activation. So I do a little bit of all of these different things, and mostly in groups, but also I do one-to-one sessions.
Amazing. That sounds beautiful. I didn't even realize you were in Cape Town. So what led you to become an alternative and holistic care provider? How did you get into this?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to be brief on this one, though it's kind of a long story. But so before I was doing this work, I was a scuba diving instructor, an underwater videographer, and I was a whale watching guide. So this is where like my love for nature started there, and really
Yes.
kind of awakening into what the world is and nature, and how do we relate to animals and seeing the behaviors of these animals on the water. That's where it kind of all started to unlock into like, oh, okay, so what am I putting on my body and what's my impact into the world, right? And so then I was doing that for a while, and when the COVID started, the pandemic and all of these hype thing, so I was coming down, I was coming from a boat trip, and my partner just told me, okay, I think we're gonna lose our jobs. And I was like, I think I'm pregnant. So it all really began there, because we moved places from, we were living in Mexico, being just singles, living the beach life, to like being locked down, into like being pregnant, locked down in my in-laws' house. So it was a really deep initiation into the feminine, because at the same time that I was pregnant, there were gifts that started to pop into my life, like music. And I was always very interested in music, and I was like, not good enough. I had these voices, not good enough. I'm not good for playing, stringed instruments, or my voice is not good enough for that, for this. But it happens to be that there was an ukulele in my in-laws house and nobody was really playing with, and I say, well, I'm here, I'm locked down, I'm gonna start playing. So I start playing, and it kind of actually, it was very easy for me to do it. And I'm still learning, but it was like, oh, actually it's not so bad. So this creative side of me that I didn't really pay attention too much, I was doing videography, which is creative job as well, and editing and photography. And I've been an arty person for most of my life, and I used to do painting, photography, but this was different. This was into music and sound. Yeah. So I gave birth to my daughter, and I went to a really traumatic birth experience, and I realized that there were so many things that I didn't know about my body. And it really blew my mind that I spent most of my life not really understanding my body. not really paying attention into, yeah, my cycle. And having a daughter, it was kind of like, okay, so what am I going to teach my daughter? So
Exactly.
I then began to really study into like women's health and doing different courses. And then also I started singing to my daughter. And so when I started singing to her to put her to sleep, it was the song and the sound was coming through me in a way that I didn't really experience before. And so I wasn't really having these second thoughts of like, am I being good, or like I'm just singing to my daughter, like, you know, and she's happy. So I started singing more and more, and then I had this fixated idea in the moment. I was like, well, there's something here that wants to come out. So I say that, okay, I'm gonna open this voice no matter what. And so I started singing more. And being in Mexico, it was a blast, because then I started to study the sweat lodge traditions and became a facilitator of the sweat lodge. And then I studied singing bowls, and I started going to like cacao ceremonies. And it was in the cacao ceremonies that I started to sing more, and people would come to me and say, wow, there is something ancient or something deeper there, that, well, where is it coming from? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just, you know, I just grabbed that drum and I'm just like, it's just coming, it's just flowing through me. But the truth is also that I allow myself for that to happen.
Yes.
So and I always, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was like that song of like the Frozen movie, and you hear like, that's the call. And so do you hear it, and do you actually do something with it, or you just, you know, block it? And I think that voice is in all of us, and I think that voice is in all women, that we want to, and it's not only about singing, it's about expressing about what's the space that we take in the world, right? And then I kind of channeled that into singing, and then into music, and then I start buying more instruments, and then meeting other sisters who I was also learning from, and start getting involved into wellness and facilitating retreats. And then I realized that I was actually, it came to me very naturally to facilitate and to share my journey and music in general. And so from someone that didn't really have a background in music, because I don't have a like technical side of it,
Yes.
I realized that I was just, everybody can hear and feel music, everyone can sing, but it's just because we are so like, this society maintains so much in like this block of like, you know, these boxes where if you don't hit this tone, then you're not, it's not good, or if you doing this, it's not good enough, or like, you know, you grow up and you hear so many things that you start making yourself a little bit smaller, and then you carry all this shame inside of you. And so the work started there. It started with pregnancy, with really diving into the feminine, because I have a responsibility with my daughter as well, and then not only with her but with all the other little girls and women. And then understanding that as an adult woman, that I was like mind-blowing, that I didn't understand my body. And so went into a full-on pregnancy with no support, because I was locked down. There was no woman around me that I could go, woman circle. No, there was none of that. And I had an online doula that really helped me, but the foundation wasn't there. So then I became very passionate about sharing this, what I've learned, with other women, and then leading women's circles, and then really believing in our abilities and capabilities to do music, to sing, and to take whatever space we want into the world.
Wow, that's quite a story, like all these different facets that started. Like, I love that. So in your opinion, what is your favorite free medicine, and what are the benefits? I saw something that you
Yes.
wrote about this. Yes.
Yes, so there's a lot of different free medicines. For me, singing, it's like a free medicine that is just so available to us. But singing cannot come without the breath, because we are this only alive instrument in this world that can, you know, we can sing, but to sing we need to use the breath. So they kind of come together, and this is like I say, it's available to us, and not many people use it. And I feel that, yeah, it's free, it's there. And I think in ancient times, I don't know, like people will used to be around the fire and sing together, but then we lost that because of the modern society, and then we made it into this box that is just about sounding pretty. Whereas like benefits of singing is like you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system. After you hum for a few minutes, you feel better. Like you're using your diaphragm, you using, you know, all your resonance
Your nervous
in
system.
your body, and you're activating that. But not only that, then you also, with singing, you activate your self-love and confidence. And obviously, depending on if you do it in a group setting or if you do it by yourself. But you know, we used to hear, oh, better sing in the shower. And it's like, well, yeah, fine. But there are spaces where people, and especially women, I think it's something so beautiful of sharing that when you're in a group setting, that you let your voice out. It's, wow, it's to be here and to be seen. And I would say that the three pillars of like free medicines, because I can't leave this one out, it's movement. So when you have breath, and you can do breath work, and you have singing, and you have movement, as in dancing, just play a song and dance and move your hips. These are like free medicines. And of course, I can't leave out nature. And I know that this is all of like a big package, but yeah, I would say, you know, singing and movement is like very, very beautiful medicine that is free.
Exactly. And it's good for your nervous system. And like you said,
Yes.
you brought up the fact that human beings are intrinsically ritualistic, and we've lost all of that, unfortunately. Okay, beautiful. So you do a lot of sound healing. So can you explain the mechanics to us of how this works and the benefits, and how important intention is in this whole equation?
So I'm gonna try to explain it very basic. And we are all vibrational beings. Everything vibrates. Everything has a natural frequency. The chair that you're on, your body, your organs, your brain, everything is vibrating. And so that vibration is usually measured in hertz, which is when one cycle, the amount of cycles that it goes into, like 1 second. So let's say, for instance, your brain. So your brain wave, they will be acting different at different times. They will have a different frequency. So when we are in a beta state, the wave are going to be more rapid. And then you're like thinking, okay, I have to do this, and I have to go there, and I have to, you know, all of this. And so what we do with the sound is to entrain, which is like almost like calling that part of yourself that it has a frequency, but maybe became disharmonized with you playing a ball, and that will entrain with your body and your brain wave to maybe make those brainwave a little bit slower, and a little bit calmer. And so when we get into different brain waves that are a little bit calmer, we can also get into dream state, or like lucid dreams. And there the subconscious mind can also take place, and things can come out. So let's say you visualizing, you seeing this imaginary world that you might think, this is just my imagination, but it's actually your body talking to you. And this is where the power of intention comes in, because we're doing a session. So there is two ways of this. So there is the intention of the facilitator, but then there is the intention of the one that is receiving. So all the time, you know, I'll tell people, okay, so to bring up an intention for this experience, and that intention will really help to manifest and go to the place that it needs to go. Maybe your body needs to loosen up, these stress related things, or maybe something emotional. A lady that she told me she never ever cry, never, like it's been years. And I went to work in this like where the old people,
An old age home.
And this lady told me it's been many years, decades, that she doesn't cry. And then we do a sound journey. And this lady, when we finished, she's like paralyzed like this and just start crying. And it's just, and then she doesn't stop crying, and she cries and cries, and she's telling me I never really cry. So what the sound did was enabling her to let those emotions to come out, because we hold in because we have things to do, because we have family, we have children, we have this, we have that. And so when you bring up the sound into the space and that intention, the magic can happen. And from the point of view of the facilitator, then you have sound as, you know, you can have a concert and not get the same results as you do with sound journey or with sound therapy, because there is also the type of instruments that you play, but also the intention. And you know, for me, when I connect to that, what I believe is greater than me, and it comes into song inside of me, this is not me as an individual, but it's something that is coming out from, I don't know where, could be source and ancient songs, I don't know, but there is a power there. And this is what people call the great mystery. You don't know, but you feel it, and I feel it, and the people feel it. So that it's the power of intention, of really, from the facilitating point of view, of really letting it unfold in front of you, and then that is just not a performance. Because if you go out for a performance, you go for a concert, and that's it. But this is a setup that is made for release and for bringing back harmony into the body.
Yeah, amazing. You do a lot of cacao ceremonies, and they've become such a trend, especially in Cape Town, but there are real benefits to drinking it and incorporating it into healing events. Can you chat to us about the history of this and maybe some of the benefits as well?
Yes. So yeah, cacao, it has become such a trend, not only in Cape Town, everywhere. But you know, a sister one told me, maybe we're not working with the cacao. Cacao, it's working with us as a softer version of plant medicine. And you know, that made me think, well, you know, we don't know. And the thing is, cacao itself, it does have benefits in terms of like physical benefits, and there is also energetics. So I know that it has become a trend, and probably what we're doing today is more like a modern version of what it was, right? And it's almost like an interpretation of what it was as well. But then you have the benefits added that are there, like, you know, you have for women it's very good because it has a lot of magnesium. So if you have it, if you are PMS or you having it before you get your period, it's great. And my invitation is just feel it, right? So start communing with cacao more often. And to me, you know, in the beginning it sounded a lot of like, yeah, cacao can open your heart and you know all of these things, and you're like, is it really? But when I work with cacao more and more, and in Mexico it's very available, so I get my seeds, and it was almost like a ritual. You get the seeds, you toast them, you peel them, and then you grind them, and then you make your cup, and then the power of intention also comes in here. Then I'm drinking that, and I'm having my intention with it, but I'm also trying to feel, okay, so how do I feel when I have it? And if you really pay attention, it's like, if you have a cup of coffee, you can feel the caffeine. You feel it. I mean, if you're in tune with your body, some people say, I don't feel nothing. I take a coffee at 9 p.m. and I feel nothing. But maybe you are not in touch with what you feel, but your body's doing something with it. So when you have cacao, like I say, I invite you to simply feel it. And what it feels is like an enhance of the mood, like it's a mood enhancer, and it's an antidepressant, and it also has something called phenylethylamine that I'm not pronouncing it very well, but is something that you produce when you are in the beginnings of that love phase, when you're meeting somebody and you're like, you know, that feeling. That's why everybody wants a chocolate. Obviously this is sugar elements as well. But it does causes that into your body. So now add those physical elements into a setup where everybody is together, with an intention and in a safe space where there is not judgment. You're creating a container that it feels safe, where everybody can start seeing each other as a mirror. And a lot of these ceremonies comes into what do you want to release and what do you want to bring in. So it's not just the act of drinking the cacao, but you drink the cacao, you start feeling good because it's doing something physical into your body. It is also pumping more blood into your heart space, and since you feel a little bit more open, and then you have this container where people are open as well, and then you start mirror each other. Because a lot of the time what happens is we feel lonely. We feel that our problems are our problems, and maybe you see everybody happy, or maybe you see social media and you think that everybody has a perfect life except for you. But it's not true. The truth is that we all go through different challenges, whether it's something maybe small or big, doesn't matter. Everybody goes through challenges. And so when you start seeing everybody sharing that, there is a deep sense of connection. And so these are containers that we are creating that, yes, they're kind of our own interpretation of what the past will have been, but they also have their own space. And I think it's beautiful that we are reconnecting through that. You can do that with tea as well. We can do a rooibos ceremony in South Africa, So it is all combined, right? And to go back into the history of it is, I like to maybe point out that, cacao was used as a currency. And there is a lot of different, like the Mayas and the Aztecs, and they all use it. And it was also for the elite. So they will be will be used for ceremonies, but not like the ceremonies that we know today. The ceremonies back then, it would be for like a wedding or like some sort of deal, because it was very precious. If you think about a pot of cacao, it will have about 40 different seeds, more or less. And you're having about 40 grams of cacao in a cacao circle ceremony these days. So some people with 30, 35, 40 grams, let's say, around that. That's a lot of cacao. And so that cup of cacao takes so much to actually get that. And so they were trading this cacao, and it was used for the elite. And so for me, I almost like to think, today we use the cacao, and we make these chocolate bars. If you go and see how in the Ivory Coast the people are treated for getting the cacao, because it's been bought by Europeans, that then goes into like these big brands of chocolate. These people are not getting much. But then, there's all these things about like being fair trade and, where the cacao comes from. But here then, the idea is to really understand how precious this plant is, and that it almost, in a way, it is also not being consumed by everybody. So not everybody can go to a cacao ceremony, because that cost. It is not a cheap thing to buy. So I'm not saying that it's just for the elite, but just being able to go to a cacao ceremony means that you can think about your well-being. You're not thinking about what food I'm going to eat today. So it is a privilege.
A privilege.
It is a privilege to actually have that cup of cacao that have gone through so many hands and so many people to actually get into your cup. Yeah, I think there is all these different gods and goddesses related to cacao, and it's a very beautiful way to understanding how the Aztecs and the Mayas used to feel about the plant. But we also have a responsibility today to also see how we use the plant.
Yes, absolutely. That's such a beautiful deep dive into the ceremony, because it's so fascinating. It really makes you appreciate everything so much more. We recently watched a TED talk on the fact that creativity is missing from most wellness programs or journeys. And you mentioned your creativity just now. Can you maybe unpack this for us a bit? How are the two tied? What are your thoughts on the importance of creativity in a wellness journey?
Yeah, so creativity or creative activities that people can do in wellness retreats. It is so important to release, to get in touch with our feelings. So whether it's like painting or, there's so many ways to unpack this, because even like singing is creative and painting is, and like even crochet can be like anything that, you can do with your hands. And yes, that you can express yourself through it. It really enhances your self-esteem because you have this sense of completion that you've done something, but also it comes with the gift of like acceptance into like what other people's art can look like and yours. Like I did this retreat where everybody was weaving and it was amazing. Like everybody got taught what to do and they all look different, but very different. And it's just like a very simple pattern and it has like some pom-poms at the end. Some were bigger, some were longer, and some were like, the colors that they choose. It was so different and I love that because it was their own interpretation. Everybody got to see each other and accept each other in a safe space where you can just be. Because a lot of the times the problem with creativity is that it's, again, it's a class for you to do what the teacher does. And for me, that was part of my journey. I would go to drawing classes and no, you're not achieving what they want you to do. And so same with singing, same with theater. I was not achieving what they wanted me to do until I was like, okay, no more. I'm not gonna do anything that no one tells me. I don't mind. I want to just express myself, and it's about the journey of actually painting something. I don't need to make its eyes better. This is what I try to do in my retreats, is actually like empowering people through that. Now, I don't know how many facilitators or people that do the retreats actually incorporate these things into their offerings. Maybe it's more about the yoga or like doing different activities. But what I do know is that within the women's space, this is growing and growing, The women's circles are like expanding all around the world. So with the women's circles and the women retreats, there's a lot of creativity involved. And there's a lot of like different offerings. I've seen it around, like creating the smudge sticks or like working with clay and really what unfolds from that without any idea of what you're going to do. Then you go into the space and like given a theme of like what it is to be a woman and creating just a little reminder that you can put in a special place in your life. So creativity really helps us to connect with ourselves, to connect with other people as well, to have self-esteem, a sense of completion, but it also helps us to release some of the stress and anxiety.
Absolutely. You speak a lot about a voice, throat, and womb connection. Can you break this down for us? Because I want to be specific though. So in South Africa, with such high gender-based violence and rape statistics, it's obvious our voices aren't being heard as women. How can we change this, starting with our relationships within ourselves?
I'm very passionate about this voice womb work because it's part of the journey that I've been going through. So just to break it down a bit digestible and quicker, when we are in the process of, when we are a fetus, there is a moment that there is a process called gastrulation where everything is created, the different layers of our bodies. And our pelvic floor and our throat and larynx will be created into one point, but then they will start separating. And as they separate, then one will be here, obviously, and then one will be down here, but they will be connected the whole life. So what happens here, it directly, impacts down here. And so there's a lot to unpack here, but let's say, for instance, like we clench in our jaw a lot of the time because we are stressed, and then we have like tension into our pelvic floor. So this is where voice comes in as a way of releasing. And you ask me of free medicine, so we have singing that acts directly into our nervous system that can help us to bring back ourselves and maybe get out of the survival mode that we live in sometimes. So, but then there is the social and energetic side of the voice as well, because then it's not only about singing, but it's about what you say and why did you say it and how did you say it. there is a process of also in history where women has been suppressed and silenced throughout history in different part of the world, and still today there is women that their voices are not valid, that whatever they say they have to be they told not to go to school or university, and there's different societies these days. So there's many places where there's women that can vote, and women that there's all this movement of women's rights and women's really stepping into their full power. But of course there is still work to do. And here in South Africa, not only in South Africa, when I was living in Mexico, and I think Mexico actually is one of the countries that have most murder women, and there is a lot of missing women as well. So here, the work is also coming into our governments, and obviously we have a society that is full-on patriarchal, where a lot of the rules are made by men, and there is not like that respect and honoring of a woman. And I feel like here the men need to also be educated. But what happened with the men? Because we have to see women as a goddess, that can create life from the womb. So that's a miracle. And I think that if men would really taught this and seeing, okay, what a woman can do, what she can bring, the energy that she can bring. And there were societies that were more matriarchal societies. But there is so much going on in the world. There is so much going on in our government. As long as you have people that, are actually thinking of what they're going to put on the table, then you don't have time to self-actualize. So then you just repeat the same patterns. So it is a product of the system as well. Because I'm sure those guys that are raping some women, if the education system was better and they had the space and the time to, I'm sure they wouldn't do that. But it's rotten. And so we as women also have a responsibility to educate in our circles. You don't have to go on campaigns all around the world, but you can start with your own community. You can start with your husband and their friends, and then just really try to bring up these subjects and see, okay, so what can we do? Maybe something small scale, but just really getting the voice out there. Because even just like shooting a video and putting it on social media when everybody is just now, that's gonna help someone. Maybe,
yes. You offer floating sound baths, which to me remind me of being in the womb. Is there psychological methodology or benefits of immersing oneself in water during healing therapies?
Yes, so there's many benefits of floating itself. Just floating, then now you add the sound and it's just like a explosion. But floating, it's really good for relaxing, for also when you're in the water and you are submerged, you don't have a lot of distractions and the sound changes. So the sound on the water, it is that experience of being in the womb. And a lot of people have told me, it's like this embryonic experience. Because what happens when you're in the womb? So when I do my floating sound bath, people are warm in the water, like it's warm water. And what you experience is being held, so being nurtured as well, because you're also in a vulnerable position. You're like laying down with your legs and arms open, and so it's vulnerable, and so you have to feel trust. So then they're trusting me and kind of moving people around, and in that sense also people kind of bump into each other sometimes, and that creates a sense of connection. And that's what I recall from people talking to me about it. Yes. And their experience. Some people not. Some people might get a little bit uncomfortable because that is uncomfortable to be so open maybe, or like being floating, and it's an experience. And for some people it's very hard to be still. So you might have all the props and you have like the noodles, and then people taking the thing off, putting it on again. Some people don't find, but that's part of the experience, because you're like, okay, can you be still for an hour? And so it is a challenge. But I had a lady that had something, it's like sort of illness that it's through the nervous system, and I'm not sure if it goes radiopathy or something like that. It's something with the nerves. And then she told me, wow, that it was the only time that she didn't feel those nerves being fired. Like she literally could relax in there. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And you know that sound underwater travels faster than through air. So you will hear the sound different, but it will hit you quicker. But then also I have the balls inside the water, so you feel the vibration as well. So it's a very beneficial experience for anyone that wants to simply relax.
Yes, I can imagine. That sounds really soothing. I love the way that you reframe menstruation. I think for so many of us, especially when we're younger, it's kind of a hindrance, it's a literal pain. But I think as we get older, and well, I know for me specifically, as I get closer to the time where my periods are sort of going to go away, I've learned to be more grateful and appreciative of having them. So can we chat a bit more about this life-giving cycle? What are your thoughts on it?
So for most of my life, I was like, my period was something that happened. And, you know, I've been lucky enough that my period was not like a very painful thing to go through. But I've spoke to many women that it's really painful, or the PMS symptoms are really strong. But I didn't have the awareness of, like having my period and having the time to rest. I was like on the go, you know, and you hear these adverts, you know, and it's like nothing happened. And it's like, no, well, actually something is happening. We can't make it invisible, but we try, and we try so hard. And, you know, I remember watching these advertisements like that. I mean, there's so much I can talk about this, but mainly for reframing the menstruation, it's to really thinking about it, and this really changed my life, to think about this moment of the month where I have the opportunity to rest, to reset, and let go. So, you know, soon I was thinking about this because soon it's going to be my birthday, and I think I'm going to be bleeding on that day. On another time, I will be like not good, but actually I feel like it's amazing. I'm like, oh yes. So it's like letting go all this last decade, because, you know, it's like a meaningful moment for me. And then I'm just kind of adding all of these extra interpretations of what it is. And it's really, all is changing is my mind, because she's still coming, and she has come from the last few years. But if you really think about it, if we really count the many times that we menstruate during our whole life, I think it's between 7 and 9 years that we will be bleeding continuously. So then when you start reframing that, and it's not only about the menstruation, because a lot of time we forget about the ovulation. And so one of my teachers was telling me the big protagonist here is the ovulation. And it is in the ovulation that you have the gift also to birth. So when you birth, you not only birth a child. You don't have to birth a child every month, but you can birth a project. Really take that moment into like, okay, I'm feeling in my full power. It can be different for other people. Maybe ovulation can be a moment that you feel a little bit of pain, you know, at some point. But when you start tracking your cycle, you really know your body. So the first step is to track your cycle, not only in terms of your cervical mucus and when are you going to be ovulating, but also your mood. And so when you start seeing that, you can see, okay, well, when I'm ovulating, I'm feeling like, you know, I can do so much, then taking that energy into birthing whatever we want to do. And that's part of the reframing of the cycle of ovulatory and menstrual cycle.
Beautiful. It's such a good sort of a different attitude to have with something that's what makes us a woman. So it's important. Okay. And then what is your opinion on the importance of all aspects of wellness and movement? So the physical movement.
Physical movement, yes, definitely. Well, you know, we are physical beings as well as, you know, all this ethereal thing. And I feel like coming back into the body, it's looking after this body and moving this body. It's important because a lot of the energy can be stagnant, and it does store in certain areas. And, you know, there is a lot of different books about like where every illness is storage and all of this stuff. But like, if you really see like the different illnesses that people have, they all will be back tracing to maybe something emotional. I believe that. I probably can't explain that 100%. I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert, but I can feel it and I can see it. And I can see it around me. I have experienced it myself. So it's like, okay, so stress can really affect our body. I mean, it's a fact. You can feel it in your back, or you can feel it anywhere. You can, especially in the hips for women, and our pelvic floor as well. And so this is where like all that voice and womb, really understanding that can really help us, because if we have that tension in our jaw and in our hips, we can release it with very easy movements. So you can play your best song and do a few circles with your hips, or you can just do an 8 with your hips. It's very, very easy. And you can just shake and you see how you feel. Just shake yourself for about 10 minutes. It really feels a big shift. So for me, I always like to kind of invite people, feel it, because sometimes we get into the mind, let's find why this is okay or what. That's all good and well. We can try to understand things, but embodying the information is something very different. So embody is very easy. It's very easy. You go and shake and then you see, do I feel better or no? And then just do more of that. I think dancing, this is another one that's in a box. You have to dance like this, or the movement have to be like that, or is people watching me, or am I gonna do it well, or am I being too sensual? Because a lot of the time for women it's like, oh, you don't have to be so much, and that's another layer. That's because we feel like we're too much, and
layer of shame.
Exactly. And so that, I was thinking the other day, I was like, wow, that's a layer that we have to also move through. Not only the voice and us taking a space into whatever sphere in a world that is made by men, pretty much, but also about how do I bring in my movement that I don't feel like I am invading somebody or offending somebody, but also between women, because we have all these wounds that comes from long time ago in which we criticize each other, or we don't, if this person is doing that. But actually what we're trying to do is actually accept all of that, all of that, our movement. And then if you see your sisters, letting it loose, amazing. That's good. And then if you don't want to do it in public, do it in your house, but do it.
Exactly. I'm going on to the last question now. I love how you focus on connecting to self and nature, which we've spoken about quite a few times now. Can we unpack that a little bit, or maybe just explain the importance of that? Because I think especially today, the nature connection is so imperative because we've lost it so much.
Yes, so nature, it's the best healer, in my opinion. Yes, we have all of these tools that we can do with ourselves, but nature is particularly amazing. And it only takes to go for a walk, to remove your shoes and just walk on the beach or on the mountain, in the soil, to really shift everything. And there is a lot of, like, you can go and type in the internet, grounding.
Grounding.
There's so much about grounding. There's people that bury themselves in the ground. I take off my shoes and go to the beach, but you can go that far. And the thing is that this is so available to us. South Africa is beautiful and it has so much nature around. You can go for a beach walk if you live close to the ocean, but you can also go into a river and really start listening. Because what happens sometimes is that when in the silence, you can start listening to what maybe the plants and the rocks and I don't know, it sounds a bit weird, but there is something there to start really listening. And sometimes listening can really manifest as just intuition of grabbing something. And if you want to make music, you can grab 2 stones and then just put it together and start singing. For me, being in nature really actually enhance the gift of sound, because when you are there, then you start listening to that. It can come a song. It is part of like being there, because the place is enabling you to listen. And so I think nature itself is just healing. It's important to at least have a little bit, like we become so sedentary in this modern world. So we work on our phones. Sometimes I take a little bit of time to detox from technology because I can really feel that it pulls my energy. And
It
so
does.
I think it's very important to have those times. Like, I know we all work with social media, we all work in computers, even if you don't want, you have to.
You
Even
have,
if you sell
yeah,
potatoes and you have a potato farm, you're gonna have to sell it to somebody. And it became this kind of platform that we use, but we can't let the platform to be on our space all the time. So it's very important that reconnection with nature. You can go for a little walk during the day, but most importantly, I think it's also the term of like detoxing from technology.
yes,
It's because then that comes into reconnecting, and you're reconnecting not only with nature, because we are nature, so you're reconnecting with yourself ultimately.
exactly. But on that note, I'm going to ask you for your technological details so
Yes,
that
yes,
people can
yes.
get hold of you. So I know that you've got your, the irony of this, you've got your website, you always available on your Instagram. Is there any other way we can get hold of you? You've got an email, which is on your website.
Just you like those are the ones like on Instagram at Melodic Moonrise, or my website melodicmoonrise.com. And
Yes. And are there any workshops coming up? Is there anything coming up
yes,
that you want to? Okay.
so there are two things coming up, and so one of them is a breathwork and sound journey that is going to be at the waterfront. That's on the 24th of August, and it's going to be a fusion. It's a multi-sensory experience, and the idea came from working with whales and all the kind of ocean background that I have, and just kind of mixing it with sound. So we're going to have this
Lovely.
theme around earth to ocean, which is going to be a remembrance of like our interconnection and a celebration of like being on this planet. So we're gonna do the breath work, and then the sound is gonna be with the whale sounds and crystal bowls and all many different instruments to unfold the experience for everyone. For that, like, there's a few tickets left, but all the early birds are gone, and it's only a space for 20 people. There's gonna be a storytelling as well in it. And the second thing, it's my voice, womb, heart connection workshop that is going to be fully online. Last year I did it like a hybrid. This year it's going to be an online group container with the option of going into the retreat in October. So we started in September, and we go to different modules: understanding the voice, the womb, then the physiological and energetics of this connection. Then we move into practices that are very easy to do, that don't take many hours but really can shift everything, and vocal and somatic tools. Then we move into womb healing and ancestral release from the maternal lineage, and then to the paternal lineage as well. So these are like two ceremonies, and then the big closing ceremony, and that's 50% off right now. So these are my two offerings.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We've had such an insightful time.
Thank you.